In this video, we're going to take a look at custom events. Custom events are a special type of workflow trigger that you can add here. You'll find it under custom, and here we are, create a custom event. Now, custom events are really powerful for helping you streamline your workflows, reduce any duplication, reduce any redundancies. It also ensures that you don't create extra work for yourself, that you reduce error. Custom events are also helpful for being more specific about the timing of your workflows. You can sequence things so that there is maybe a delay between actions. Now, we do have, of course, this action under navigation to add a pause, but custom events really kind of take things to the next level. You can also pass data to custom events just like you can with backend workflows. You can use custom events within reusable elements as well. So we're going to take a look at baseline kind of use cases around this. You certainly don't need to use it for every single thing, but there are some cases where it can be incredibly helpful for keeping you organized and streamlined in your design here. So let's take a look at some of the elements that I've designed on this sample page here to show you how we can really leverage custom events. Let's say that a user is filling out a form and they can choose one of three options here from this radio button. So I don't have a full form or anything filled out. The point here that I'm going to make is that if we have branching off of actions, right? If the user chooses option 1 and they click continue, they may be going to a specific step for that option, or certain actions in the database need to occur. Maybe a change into a record, maybe an email gets sent. Right, option 1 takes them one direction, versus if they select option 2, maybe something else happens. Option 3, something else happens, okay? But with each of those independent flows, maybe we also want a common sequence of actions to happen as well. And instead of duplicating those common actions, we can have all three funnel back into a singular custom event. So let me walk you through this workflow that I'm describing here so you can see what I mean. So let's say everything gets triggered here from this continue button. Okay, now let's have a condition on here. Only when the radio button's value is option 1. Okay, so this is specifically if they chose option 1. So maybe for this option, I want to make a change, to the current user. So I'll say make a change to current user. I make some kind of a field change, right? Maybe I also want to send an email somewhere, right? Maybe they're filling out a form and I have information to send an email. And in addition to that, I also want to show a specific group that I have here. So I've got these 3 groups. They're all hidden by default, and this is just to have something visual on the page for us to see. So let's say if I choose option 1, I make a change to a user, I send an email, and I also want to show group 1, right? Maybe this is just the next step that they go to if they come from this first option. Now I'm going to copy this entire workflow and paste it and set up the workflow for if they select option 2. Okay, so maybe option 2 doesn't send an email and we want to show group 2. Maybe we still make a change to a user, or maybe we make a change to something else, right? I can search for maybe an application and I update those details there. Okay, so 2 different workflows based on the option. Okay, just to really bring it home here, let's say option 3 is maybe that only shows group 3 and nothing else. Okay, so 3 distinct things. Now, what if I want all 3 of those flows to eventually show an alert message? Okay, so I've got this first alert message here. This is in green. Alert messages are also hidden by default. We have to show them in a workflow. I've got everything visible on the page right here, just so that you guys can see what we're working with. So we've got group 1, 2, 3 inside of this area. Only one of them would ever show at a time. And then we've also got our alert messages. So let's start with the first one. So again, let's say I wanted all 3 of these flows to show the first alert message. Let me just select message 1 there. So I'll copy this, paste it, right? Paste it here. Now, this is a very minor example. This might not seem very tedious, but imagine an application with many, many workflows, dozens and dozens of workflows, where there could potentially be a lot of different trigger points to ultimately run, a common sequence of actions. Custom events are going to be incredibly helpful here. So my example is that all 3 of these need to show that alert message. Okay, so it's simple enough for me to add that to the end of all 3. But let's say that all 3 of them need to not only show an alert message, but also send an email and also make a specific change in the database, all 3 of them, right? So instead of having them all 3 at the end here, where I have to keep track of the different possibilities. If I ever want to make a change, I have to do it in all three places. I collect that into a singular custom event. And all of the trigger points simply trigger the custom event. This becomes more useful if your common sequence of actions has multiple actions, of course, right? So I'm going to create an event here, and I'm going to call this, we'll just call it confirmation. We'll add, so I'm going to remove the alert message from here. I'm just going to cut this out of here and paste it into the confirmation. And again, let's say that there's some other action, just kind of going to prove the point that this really becomes useful if you have multiple actions here. And maybe there's some other make a change action to something in the database. Let's say we make a change to a job post, right? And we make some field changes. So from option one, it does everything related to option one. But then at the very end, if we go down to the action category here, custom events, we can trigger that confirmation custom event, right? I do all of these things unique to option one, but then I'm going to do my final steps regardless of which option I've chosen. And that's all of these three things here. I'm going to take this trigger and do the same thing at the end of option two, right? We're not showing the alert message here. We're just triggering the confirmation. Same thing for option three, right? So now all three of these, you can see they do their unique things, but then they funnel into a single custom event. This keeps things really nice and tidy. It reduces error on your part. If you ever need to make a change to the email content, to what's being modified here, you only need to do it once, okay? So I'm going to preview the page here. And actually, I won't be able to send any emails and it's going to give me an error. So let's add a different action here to, I'm just going to do another make a change here, let's say to conversation thread. I'm not actually making changes, but just to show that, you know, we have different actions and there and no other emails here. And instead of sending an email here, let's do, let's see if we can do something else. Maybe we'll just scroll to the top of the page like that, okay? All right, so let's test this out here. I'm going to choose option one and hit continue. So there we see the first group and we see our alert message. That one will go away. That's how the alerts work. Option two, hit continue here. There we see that group also shows the alert message. Same thing, option three. Now, one thing that I have not accounted for is that these groups are technically still visible. They're simply designed on top of each other. So if I go back to option one, I don't think I'm going to see it because it's actually layered behind groups 2 and 3. So what I would need to do from here is actually hide those groups, all three of them, because we can't anticipate which option is going to be selected. Now this actually takes me to the next thing I want to show you about custom events. So as we can see here, these workflows triggered the custom event. That's the only way you can trigger a custom event. They have to be triggered from another workflow. Custom events can't be triggered automatically. So something has to come before it in order for this to run. Now, these workflows don't necessarily have to have other actions. It could just be something happens, we trigger the event, and that's perfectly fine. Because maybe there is a trigger point where that's all that needs to happen, whereas other trigger points have other things unique to them, and then eventually they trigger the custom event. So what I'm going to do is create another custom event here, and we're going to call this hide groups, like that, okay? And the purpose of this is to hide all three groups, so we can sort of reset ourselves. So I'm going to hide group 1, we'll hide group 2, and we will hide group 3. So the first custom event can actually trigger the second custom event, and this is where you can create, a daisy chain of actions from one to the next, which is really powerful for more complicated flows, especially with search functionality when you have to apply various filters. We love using custom events for that sort of thing. Now, I also want to point out that you can not just trigger a custom event, which is an immediate triggering, but also schedule a custom event so that there's a little bit of a delay between them. And I'm going to use that for this one here because I don't want the groups to hide immediately. I want to be able to see them for a moment, kind of similar to the alert message, and then hide them after a few number of seconds. So I'm going to put my delay to 3 seconds just to demonstrate this here. And so it'll wait before it triggers this to hide all of the groups. So let's refresh the page here and we can see that in action. All right, so we'll do option 1, continue. Okay, there's going to be a little bit of a delay, but eventually, there you go. Group 1 disappears. We'll do option 2. And then I'm going to go back to option 1 because we're basically just resetting ourselves here. Okay, there we go. Now, let's say that I want to customize my alert message, right? So this confirmation event is showing the alert message, and it's going to show the same message no matter what, because I haven't changed anything. It's just the default message here. But this action does let me change the alert message, right? So one thing that I can do is pass data to the custom event so that I can work with that data. And in this case, what I'm going to do is have the alert message change based on the option that was selected. Okay, so for this custom event, I'm going to add a parameter. So if you've worked with any backend workflows, this is very, very similar. You basically create your own custom parameters to receive information from the previous step, whatever triggered this custom event. So I'm going to call this alert content. It's just a key that I made up for this parameter. You notice that you can add multiple parameters if you want to have multiple pieces of data passed over. And the type of content here is just going to be a text, but it can be other things, right? It can be any of my data types, records from my data types. It can be option set values, which is helpful because in these previous steps, maybe I'm creating new things. I'm setting states or something, right? And I can pass those new records over to the custom event to keep track of it, keep working with it. Very, very powerful, management of data within the workflow happening here. So notice that we also have a couple of options here. This parameter doesn't need to take in a value. If there are different trigger points where we have to pass something versus other trigger points where there isn't going to be content, I can mark this as optional so that Bubble doesn't throw an error. We'll leave it required right now. And you can also, of course, pass over list values. So now that this event has a parameter, I can reference that parameter in my alert message here to override the message, and I can insert whatever that dynamic alert content is. Okay, so how do I define this alert content? Well, let's go back to what triggers the custom event. Let's go from option 1, triggering the confirmation event. Now you can see there's a field exposed here for me to pass in that actual content. This can be static or dynamic, right? I'm just going to type in you selected option 1, right, like this. That's my actual text value. So that will be passed over to this event, and it will display in the alert message. If I go to option 2 here, I'm going to paste in a similar message, but you selected option 2. Over here for 3, I'm going to paste in, oops, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to paste my content there, and then option 3 like this. And just for another example, let's program the skip button. Okay, let's say skip doesn't show any group, doesn't do anything else. All it does is it triggers the confirmation custom event, and I'm going to say you skipped this question, something like that, right? Remember, this is kind of simulating like a user would be answering filling out a form. All right, so let's test this out. I'm going to choose option 2 here, hit continue, and you'll see the message change. You selected option 2. We'll go to skip immediately. You skipped this question, right? It's just going to pass in that information. Here's continue. That's option 3 right there. You selected option 3. Okay. So that's how you can start to work with your custom events. They have to be triggered by previous workflows from your normal workflows, right? A button click, a page is loaded, something like that. Input values has changed. But you can also chain multiple custom events with each other if you want. The purpose around custom events is to help streamline a common sequence of actions, right? It's not so useful if only one thing is ever going to trigger the custom event. Really, the only time that would be useful is if you need to delay those actions, okay? Because remember, whenever you add a pause, this is an action that is available here, that is not going to affect pauses to data change actions. It's only pauses for visual changes on the page. So hiding or showing groups, showing pop-ups, things like that. But if you need to delay other actions in your workflow, like especially ones that involve database changes, then using a custom event to schedule it is going to be the way to go there. Okay, now let's take a look at how to work with custom events in reusable elements, because there's a very special type of function that is available to you with that. Let's take a look at which reusable elements we have on the page here. Actually, I might create a new one I'm going to go ahead and create a new reusable element. I'm going to call this sandbox reusable. Create here. And let's make this an alert as well. Again, the idea around reusable elements is that this would show up on, multiple pages in your application so that you're not having to design the same collection of elements with the same workflows. It kind of is similar to a custom event in that you're streamlining your design, not just your workflows, but your design, and you can have it on multiple pages to share that design and share the workflows within them. So let's keep this simple here. In this reusable element, I'm going to have an alert message. We'll call this master alert, right? And this can still be overridden. You can change the message dynamically. Now, if I want a custom event to run inside of a reusable element from outside of the reusable element, here's what we need to do. I'm first going to create a custom event inside the reusable, and I'm just going to call this show master alert. Okay, again, all the same things exist here. We can pass data to it if we want. And all this is going to do for now is just show my alert. Okay, now if I go back to my sandbox page here, our original page, I'm going to add an instance of that reusable element to my page. Let's add it to the top of the page here. Put it in the center like this. Okay, and I'm going to add, let's do with a skip button. Let's have it from here. Instead of triggering my page level custom event, I can actually trigger an event inside of my reusable element. This is how you can trigger workflows to run inside of your reusable element from outside. When I say from outside, I'm on the page level right now. Okay, notice that I don't have access to that reusable element that I created, or sorry, the custom event that I created inside the reusable, because that lives in a different place. It doesn't live on the sandbox page, not directly anyway. It's indirectly on the sandbox page because we have an instance of the reusable, but that custom event is inside of the reusable. And I don't have access to that custom event directly here, right? It's not available here. So to get around that, as long as I have a custom event inside the reusable, I can use this action. Trigger a custom event from a reusable element, and take a look at this. It will show me the custom events inside that reusable element that was selected. It auto-selected it there because it's the only one. Before I actually test that, I wanted to make a quick change here to the design of the reusable. I upgraded this reusable element so that it is on the new responsive to match my sandbox page as well. I didn't want any conflicts there. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this alert message and move it to the top of the page so that it's always visible at the top. We don't really need too much height here on the reusable element itself. I am going to make it a responsive. Let's just do a column here. But I'm going to keep the height down to nothing essentially because I don't really have anything in that part of the canvas that I want to display. I really just want this alert to exist inside of the reusable element. So I'm going to refresh the page here. Let's just go back to our sandbox page again. And you can see right there our reusable elements at the very top. There's basically no height to it, which is fine in this case. So when I click on skip from here, there we go. There is our master alert. Right, again, that is not on the page directly, but it is indirectly through the reusable, and we're able to trigger that custom event. So if your reusable elements have some sequence of actions that you want to trigger from outside of the reusable, then that is how you go about it. You put those actions inside of a custom event and trigger the custom event that way. All right, so one more time, that's what this action here is for. All right, everyone, custom events are incredibly powerful. Use them to your advantage to help keep your workflow streamlined. Try not to duplicate actions that you're repeating over and over again through different trigger points. Have them consolidate and flow into a single sequence here. That way you reduce error. It's much more organized for you. You don't lose anything by going this route. You can still pass data to it. You can control the timing between them. In fact, those are actual benefits that you get by working with those. All right, happy building.